Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I should probably say on behalf of Canadian firearms owners, on behalf of the Conservatives, how grateful I am to the Minister for Public Safety for telling the truth about this Liberal government's sham of a buyback. Now, unfortunately, he has not been so candid in the House of Commons when he knows the cameras and the microphones are rolling, but when he was speaking with a constituent, with a tenant, with an ordinary Canadian raising very legitimate concerns, he said, yeah, this is a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's not going to go after the causes of gun crime in this country, which has run rampant after 10 years of Liberal government and mismanagement of the justice file. Now, of course, when he's called on this in the House of Commons, he retreats back to the Liberal talking points that I'm sure his parliamentary secretary will give us this evening. But I wanted to ask a very fundamental question about this, because we know that the order in council prohibiting what was at first over 500 models of firearm, many of them used for hunting quite regularly and quite routinely, some of them obsolete and non-existent in the Canadian market. This order in council, which launched the prohibition that has justified this so-called buyback, came after a tragedy in Canada, a killing spree in Portapique, Nova Scotia, for which every sensible, reasonable person in this country would respond with disgust and horror. But the problem is that this was not a spree that involved legally owned firearms. It's not a spree that would have been prevented by the very measures the Liberal government introduced in the days that follow. And the reason I bring this up is because last time I spoke to the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Public Safety about firearms, he invoked that tragedy to justify the Liberal government's gun confiscation scheme. A scheme that by its very design only targets law-abiding gun owners, because, I don't have to tell you, Mr. Speaker, the criminals in this country are not the ones that will be lining up to turn over their illegal firearms to the government, regardless of whether there is any compensation. So what we have here is something that the government says will cost $750 million. Now, by the way, Liberal math, I believe you need to triple it and add 50% or something to get somewhere close to the real number. But even if we take at face value that this will cost $750 million, that is money that could be going towards beefing up law enforcement. That is money that could be going towards beefing up the border to cause us to be better able to intercept illegal firearms coming into the U.S., from the U.S., the firearms that genuinely end up in violent street crime in Toronto and Surrey and other communities across the country. We had, before the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights last week, police experts who were very candid as well, as candid as the Minister of Public Safety is when he doesn't know he's being recorded, in saying that there will be zero effect, not minimal, zero effect on gun crime when this gun confiscation scheme goes forward. So I asked the Prime Minister why he has not fired this public safety minister who doesn't even know what a firearms license is, doesn't know what the Canadian Firearms Safety Course is, doesn't know the classifications of firearms, but thinks that he somehow has the credibility to tell Canadian gun owners who are vetted and trained that they should turn over their property to the government. So I ask this government when it will drop this pretense, drop the facade, get rid of this sham of a buyback, and go after real criminals and not law-abiding hunters and sport shooters.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Public Safety.
Monsieur le Président, réponse à l'honorable député.
Mr. Speaker, in reply to the honourable member, I am happy to rise to speak to our government's commitment to crack down on our armed violence and firearms. Now, of course, the safety of Canadians is our government's top priority, and we are taking strong action to counter the increase of firearms coming across our borders and being used in our communities.
At Polytechnic, the Beretta CX-4 Storm, used at Dawson College by Kim Vergil, the CX-858, used by Richard Henry Bain at Metropolis. These are all armes d'assaut qui ont marqué l'histoire.
These are all firearms which have marked Canadian history. The government feels that the risk that these firearms carry matters more than anything. They should not be in our communities. In 2020, the government banned about 2,500 makes and models of firearms, which are not appropriate for hunting or sport, and which are not safe for civil use. We followed the recommendations of the Mass Shootings Commission, which recommended that we quickly decrease the amount of weapons in circulation. It makes sense that our government wants to fairly compensate firearm owners. I'd also like to remind the member that 2,000 models are still in use and can still be used. We responded to the Commission's request, so after that, 12,000 firearms were recovered from businesses before being destroyed. Our government will move forward with its firearm buyback program for individual owners. We're starting with a pilot project in Cape Breton. Then the program will be available to all firearms owners across the country. There will be a claims period starting later on in 2025. But no program or initiative alone can fully eradicate firearms-related violence. So in addition to removing some firearms from circulation, we are taking other action too. The government has a plan to tackle firearm-related crime, including funding for building safe communities, also funding to combat violence caused by firearms and gangs. We will also strengthen our borders. We commit to adding more resources to clamp down on contraband and firearms coming into Canada. Since 2016, our government has invested more than $1.4 billion in targeted initiatives. That includes over $165 million to equip the RCMP and the CBSA with high-tech technology to detect clandestine firearms, including those in Portapique. We also announced the deployment of helicopters, drones, where we have helped to add more staff, and canine squads at the border, all of which greatly enhances law enforcement's ability to detect and seize firearms and prohibited weapons. We're also combating diversion of firearms to the black market where they would be used to commit crime. Our government is taking real tangible action to protect those who are vulnerable to firearm violence while remaining fair toward businesses and owners who are law-abiding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We can go through the list, not in the time we have tonight, and look at all of the models that were prohibited by this government, which are used by hunters or in some cases just hobbyists. I'll mention one firearm in particular, and I don't know if the word translates well into French, but the plinkster. Plinking being referring to just shooting tin cans as a hobby. A model of the Plinkster, a .22 caliber rifle, has been put on this Liberal government's prohibition list. It has never been used in a shooting in Canada, mass or otherwise. I'll ask the Public Safety Minister's Parliamentary Secretary a simple question. Should the owner of a Plinkster who doesn't sell his firearm to the government be arrested and jailed?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, all weapons designated as prohibited, all those decisions were made by experts, not members of Parliament, experts in firearms, and all those which are military or assault style are prohibited. Our government is committed to public safety. We will control firearms thoroughly. We will protect our streets. We will limit the devastating impact of firearm-related violence, and we will make Canada safer. Assault-style weapons do not belong on our streets. We recently launched the pilot project in Cape Breton. It will be extended to the rest of the country in the fall. We will move forward with this initiative, which is what most Canadians want, Mr. Speaker.